Korea's recent missile launches didn't violate UN Security Council resolutions. His view, they were an effort to win the world's attention. On a potential US-China trade deal, President Trump says it can wait. He says the tariff money is pouring in, so the ball is in Beijing's court to come back with a better deal. Plus, South Korean consumers are feeling the pinch as the US-China trade war intensifies and domestic economic growth remains stuck in a rut. We begin this morning with the US-Japan summit and President Trump's view of the latest missile launches by North Korea. Contrary to his national security advisor and his Japanese counterpart, with whom he was holding a joint news conference, Trump says he does not think Pyongyang's launches were a violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Oh Jung-hee starts us off.
Dismissing concerns about North Korea's launches of short-range missiles earlier this month, U.S. President Donald Trump highlighted there has been no nuclear or long-range ballistic missile tests and said he'll someday strike a deal with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Fielding questions at a news conference in Japan after his summit with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Monday, Trump was asked whether he views the North's missile launches as a violation of UN sanctions.
Perhaps he wants to get attention, and perhaps not. Who knows? It doesn't matter. All I know is that there have been no nuclear tests. There have been no ballistic missiles going out. There have been no long-range missiles going out. And I think that someday we'll have a deal.
On the other hand, his Japanese counterpart said Pyongyang's launch of, quote, short-range ballistic missiles violates UN Security Council resolutions.
North Korea's May 9th short-range ballistic missile launch violates the UN resolutions, and it is extremely regrettable as they repeatedly said so. At the same time, I would like to again express my respect in the new approach taken between President Trump and Chairman Kim.
Abe once again floated the idea of having a summit with Kim Jong-un to solve the issue of Japanese citizens abducted by North Korea in 1970s and 80s and will attach no conditions on having such summit. On the trade front, Trump pressed Abe on what he called an unbelievably large imbalance and said he hopes their trade could be fair and reciprocal.
And we have an unbelievably large imbalance, as you know, trade imbalance, which has been there for many, many years, Japan having the big advantage. But I think we will have a deal with Japan.
The U.S. is considering putting high tariffs on Japan's exports of auto and auto parts. But it's expected the specifics about their bilateral trade agreement will be signed in August, as Trump has tweeted, quote, much will wait until Japan's July elections. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has vowed that Washington will continue to recover the remains of American soldiers who were killed during the Korean War. In a speech marking Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery on Monday, Pence explained that 55 cases of remains have been returned home from North Korea last year, following the agreement reached between the leaders of the two countries. Saying some of the remains have been identified while others have not, he explained much work remains to be done. Pence, the son of a Korean War veteran, also noted that he was present at the ceremony held in Hawaii last August to receive those remains. During his joint news conference in Tokyo on Monday, President Trump brought up the trade spat with China, saying the U.S. is not ready to make a trade deal with Beijing quite yet. However, a global wealth management firm forecasts that an agreement will be made just before 2020, when both sides will feel the real need to reach a compromise. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
Washington is not ready to make a trade deal with China. That's what President Donald Trump said at his joint press conference with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Tokyo on Monday.
As far as China is concerned, they want to make a deal. I think they probably wish they made the deal that they had on the table before they tried to renegotiate it. They would like to make a deal. We're not ready to make a deal.
He also explained that the tariffs imposed by Washington on Chinese goods could go up very, very substantially. However, President Trump also expressed optimism that the world's two largest economies would eventually strike a deal.
But I think sometime in the future, China and the United States will absolutely have a great trade deal. And we look forward to that.
Meanwhile, the Asia-Pacific head of the Chief Investment Office at UBS Global Wealth Management says there's little incentive for the U.S. and China to finalize a trade deal quickly. Speaking with American broadcaster CNBC, Tan Min-lan predicted that any deal would only come just before the end of the year. This, Tan explains, is because there isn't enough pain on either side to reach a deal immediately, adding that the U.S. has a strong economy and China is able to at least stabilize its economy for the time being. She said 2020 would be a chance for the two countries to reach a deal, as Trump will be facing re-election, while Beijing will want to eliminate further economic uncertainties. Kim Hye-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump wraps up his four-day state visit to Japan today. He is set to tour Japanese and American warships on this Tuesday morning, then fly back to the U.S., arriving Tuesday afternoon local time in Washington. Now, in other news, South Korea's consumer sentiment fell in May for the first time in about half a year. The Bank of Korea said Tuesday that the composite consumer sentiment index was at 97.9, down 3.7 points from the previous month. The central bank attributed the fall to an increase in people's negative responses to the escalating US-China trade dispute, sluggish domestic economic growth, and falling stock prices. After rebounding above 100 in April, the index fell below that mark again, indicating there are more pessimists than optimists about the economy. To some international business news now, and Fiat Chrysler says it has submitted a proposal to the board of Renault for a 50-50 merger of the auto giants. Now, this merger would create one of the biggest automakers in the entire world. Our Park Hee-jun with the details.
Fiat Chrysler is pushing for a merger with Renault, which would make the resulting company the world's number 3 automaker with a combined value of about $37 billion. It was announced Monday that the Italian automaker made the proposal to its French rival. According to Fiat, the deal would allow the new European automaker giant to sell 8.7 million cars annually. It would also generate $5.6 billion in estimated annual savings. The two companies would be merged with a 50-50 ownership under a Dutch holding company. The tie-up is seen as a way to respond to the difficulties automakers face today caused by expensive technologies involving autonomous driving and tightening emissions. Competition with car makers like Tesla and car-sharing services are also hurting global sales. The merger would also cut the expenses for research and development as well as expand their fading presence in key regions.
The auto industry has several problems. The emissions tax, cost control, and also an overcapacity, I find. Should Fiat and Renault merge, there would be a strong base with Chrysler in the United States and Europe, with Fiat and Renault in Asia with Nissan.
Renault said in a statement that the board will hold discussions to decide whether to go ahead with the friendly proposal. But the process is likely to take as much as a year to finalize. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety is set to announce the results of its probe on Invossa, which is a gene therapy marketed as a treatment for arthritis of the knee, as well as its manufacturer, Kolon Life Science. The ministry, which will release its findings on Tuesday, has conducted a probe into the company and its US body, Kolon Tissue Gene, after it was found that the gene cell therapy was based on a cell different from that specified in its application for official approval. The company suspended distribution and sales of the drug in April. Invossa has been selling in South Korea, Hong Kong and Macau, and was in phase 3 clinical trial in the US. Now, South Korean pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin opted last year to accept a qualifying offer from the LA Dodgers instead of opting for free agency, hoping to prove to everyone that he's not only healthy, but is also one of the best pitchers in the entire league. And so far, he's been proving his doubters wrong. According to ESPN, the 32-year-old is the leading contender for the National League Cy Young Award, given to the best pitcher in the league. It ranks pitchers based on their innings pitched, ERA, strikeouts record, among other factors. And based on those, Ryu is far ahead of the other contenders. With 7 wins and just 1 loss, with an ERA of 1.65, Ryu has a chance to become the first South Korean to get his hands on the top pitching prize. Staying with sports, the South Korean Professional Billiards Association's first league tour is set to revitalise the game starting next Monday. What's going to happen is the PBA tour is bringing its new rules and creating a more exciting atmosphere to hopefully attract a bunch of new fans. Kang Hyung-woo provides a glimpse of what we can expect.
Billiards is getting a makeover in South Korea. Ahead of the first league tour of South Korea's Professional Billiards Association on June 3rd, new rules have been announced to spice up the game. In the past, a typical billiards game was played until one player reached 40 points, but now the league will see players compete in best-of-5 games. The first 4 games will be played to 15 points, while the 5th game will be played to 11 points. For the final, competitors will play best-of-7. Globally renowned players are participating in the PBA tour, namely South Korea's Kang Dong-gung and Belgium's Frederick Kudrong.
Now that I've truly become a professional billiards player, I'll do my best to improve my game and show it to the fans.
Another change to the rules involves the initial round of 128 for men and 64 for women. After being divided into groups of 4, players will start with 99 points each. If they score, not only does it add to their total, but takes away from the other 3 competitors' scores in their group. The top 2 from each group moves on to the next round. The PBA also wants to move away from the formal uniform of tuxedos and bow ties, and has instead introduced more casual attire, such as shirts with a collar and pants. Cheerleaders will also be introduced to add excitement, as well as electronic scoreboards to better engage fans. With almost 200 players from 14 countries competing for the total prize of $236,000, the PBA is hoping to give new life to the sport and spread awareness of Korean billiards culture further afield. Kang Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
Now, the results of the European elections gave us some rather unexpected outcomes as the full picture of the world's biggest multicultural vote has been revealed and shows the overall sentiment of the European people. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So it seems European politics have become even more fragmented. Just walk us through some of the takeaways we are getting from this historic vote.
Well, just like you said, Mark, the most prominent takeaway from the election are fragmentation and polarization. Fragmentation because the 2 centrist groups, the European People's Party and the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, lost a bunch of seats to smaller, more passionate parties like the Greens and a variety of populist groups. Now that these groups have lost their majority, they will have to work more closely with Liberal members of parliament to form a working majority. The surge in the Greens' vote was pronounced in Germany, where climate has been a big theme to reduce the country's heavy reliance on coal and other polluting energy sources. And polarization because populist and Eurosceptic parties increased their share of seats to 25%, up from about 20% 5 years ago. Populists did well in major countries where they are in power like Italy, Hungary, and Poland. Asked to comment on the results, the EU Commission spokesperson told a press briefing that populists did not win the election, and instead it was pro-EU forces that won the day.
If you are asking me whether the populists win the day, which I think you have in mind, I would say no, that the populists didn't win this election. Contrary to doomsayers' prophecies, it is the pro-EU political forces across the political spectrum that won the day. Those who won the elections are the ones who want to work in and for Europe, not those who want to destroy Europe.
The EU had feared that fewer voters would show up as turnout has constantly dropped since the first direct elections in 1979. But this year's election was different, with polls showing the turnout rate at 50.9%, the highest in 2 decades. The biggest domestic issue was observed in the UK, where the British government's inability to deliver on Brexit caused the Conservatives of Prime Minister Theresa May and the main opposition Labour Party to have their worst European election results in decades, with Nigel Farage's Brexit Party winning the most seats in the UK and the biggest share of the vote. Watchers say the next Prime Minister is likely to be a hardline Brexiteer who supports a British exit from the EU without a deal. Most of the deaths on Mount Everest this year have been attributed to exhaustion and tiredness, exacerbated because a crowded route to and from the summit has led to delays. An Indian mountaineer was forced to turn back before reaching the summit, Mount Everest, due to a massive traffic jams up the mountains.
Loads of people died this year, everyone knows, and it's been a carnage. And I should say it has become a death race there, because there was massive traffic jam and people are pushing themselves who are not even capable of doing it. They do it, they try to summit, and they, instead of summiting, they kill themselves. And it's turned into a bad thing, and I think people should really look into it.
About 5,000 people have scaled the Everest summit so far, and about 300 have died on its slopes. A record 381 climbers had been permitted to scale the summit from the Nepalese side this season, and another 130 from the mountain's northern side in Tibet. Russia has succeeded in putting a Glonass-M navigation satellite into orbit, even though the rocket was struck by lightning just 10 seconds after takeoff. The Russian Aerospace Force says the rocket blasted off from northwest Russia's Plesetsk Cosmodrome on Monday at 9:23 a.m. Moscow time, adding that the satellite has been working normally in space. This is Russia's equivalent to America's global positioning system that provides real-time positioning and speed data for land, sea, and airborne receivers worldwide.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that's hopefully useful for your everyday life. Now, May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, and it's also one of the months with the highest UV index, which means the sun is extra powerful, of course. Now, the Weather Service advises people going out for a stroll, or if they have to work outside all day, to make sure they use sunscreen and put on hats and sunglasses. Our Park Se-young with more.
Spring sunshine and blue skies are here, and so are harmful UV rays. According to statistics from the last 3 years, the UV index is highest in May due to increased solar radiation and the high number of clear days. In fact, harmful UVA rays are stronger in May than in the peak summer months of July and August. Exposure to long-wavelength UVA contributes to premature skin aging and has been associated with cataract formation and retinal degeneration. Strong UV rays can also break down exhaust from cars and create the secondary pollutant ozone.
Ozone can aggravate respiratory diseases, and studies have also pointed to effects on the cardiovascular system as well as links to strokes.
Between the hours of noon and 4 p.m., sunscreen should be reapplied every 2 to 3 hours. Since sun sprays can get into the respiratory tract, they should not be used with children and infants. Sunglasses and hats can also provide protection against UV rays. And because ozone is not filtered by masks, it's best to avoid outdoor activities when the concentration is high. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, starting today, South Korean travellers will be able to use mobile payment services to buy goods overseas. With the Cabinet's revised ordinance taking effect from Tuesday, people will be able to shop at partner stores in Japan by simply scanning a QR code after pre-charging their Kakao Pay or Naver Pay accounts. This payment method allows users to avoid paying overseas transaction fees to credit card companies. The Finance Ministry is looking to expand the services to China and Southeast Asia to help strengthen the competitiveness of Korea's fintech industry. Now, Costco Wholesale Korea has made a switch from Samsung Card to Hyundai Card as its credit card partner as of last Friday. And this is a new partnership that's expected to bring major changes in the local card industry. Under the wholesaler's single network credit card policy, more than 1 million local members can now pay with a Hyundai credit card or cash at the 16 Costco outlets across the country. According to the Financial Supervisory Service, Costco's sales reached $3.3 billion last year, and 70% of payments were made using credit cards. The 10-year deal is expected to serve as a catalyst for Hyundai Card to gain a higher market share, possibly helping it overtake Samsung Card in third place. The Norwegian embassy in Seoul will hold a photo exhibition at the War Memorial of Korea to mark 60 years of diplomatic relations between Seoul and Oslo. From today through June 30th, previously unreleased photos, documents and artifacts from the Norwegian Field Hospital in Korea, or NORMASH, will be on display for free on the third floor of the museum. During the Korean War, the Norwegian Mobile Army Surgical Hospital was established to treat injured soldiers and civilians. The hospital treated a total of 90,000 patients during its 3 years of operations.
Good morning. A breezy start to Tuesday morning will see temperatures jumping fast along with plenty of sunshine. So the temperature difference will be over 10 degrees Celsius today across the nation. So have a light jacket or cardigan with you. And unlike the dark clouds we had all day on Monday, we will be basking under sunshine across the country with high to very high UV rays. So apply sunblock before heading out. And thanks to yesterday's rainfall, the entire nation will enjoy good air amazing with no harmful ozone levels. And as long as you're well covered with some protective items, it should be a nice day to go outside this afternoon. And highs will be 2 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday, ranging between 22 and 26 degrees Celsius this afternoon. No major heat wave is in store for the next few days, but warm and sunny conditions to stay with us for the last week of May and into the first weekend of June. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV. And the usual reminder that our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. That's in around 90 minutes from now. So until then, goodbye.
Planning a self-guided tour in Korea? We'll let you peek at the most beautiful hours from dawn to night in Korea. Come to Incheon, a city whose glistening morning is precious. Gyeonggi-do will make your heart throb. Come visit romantic Gyeongnam. Come to Pyeongchang, Korea's top winter destination. Come to Puyo for a memorable experience of history. Explore Busan, a city of mesmerizing waves and ocean. Visit Jeollabuk-do, a place straight out of a movie. Visit Chungcheongbuk-do, a quintessence of well-being tour. Come to Yeosu, a city with amazing sunset and night sea. Visit Daegu, a city of food and style.